The morning sun cast long shadows across the Geneva headquarters as Admiral Park Hyun-woo walked through the corridors with heavy steps. His uniform was crisp and perfect, but his face showed the weight of sleepless nights. Today would change everything for humanity, and he knew it. Dr. Kim Yoon-ji was already waiting in the main conference room when Park arrived. She stood by the large windows, watching the city below wake up to what might be its last normal day. Her tablet displayed alien language symbols that still made her head hurt after months of study. "Any word from the translation team?" Park asked as he poured himself coffee from the machine in the corner. "They finished an hour ago," Kim replied without turning from the window. "Hyun-woo, it's worse than we thought." The doors opened and Commander Lee Jae-min entered with a group of senior officers. His ship, the Indomitable, was docked at the orbital station above them. Lee had spent the night running final checks on systems that most of the Council didn't even know existed. "The alien ship is requesting permission to land," Lee reported. "Ambassador Velthak wants to deliver the message in person." Park nodded grimly. "Let him come. We need to hear this with our own ears." 2 hours later, the alien ambassador stood in the center of the same conference room. Velthak was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His large eyes looked around the room with what humans had learned to recognize as contempt. He wore robes that probably cost more than most human cities. "Leaders of the species called humans," Velthak began, his voice coming through the translation device with a mechanical tone. "I bring greetings from the Galactic Hegemony and its Supreme Council." The human leaders sat around the large table, their faces carefully neutral. President Bae Sung-hee had flown in from Seoul that morning. General Song Da-bin represented the military forces, while Dr. Yang Soo-jin spoke for the science divisions. Each of them had prepared for this moment, but hearing the aliens' words still sent chills down their spines. "Your world has been observed and evaluated," Velthak continued. "The hegemony has decided to bring your species into our great civilization. This is an honor that few worlds receive." Park exchanged glances with Kim. They both knew this was not going to be good news. "The terms are simple and fair," the ambassador said, pulling out a device that projected holographic text into the air. 70% of your population will be relocated to worlds where they can serve the greater good of the galaxy. Your remaining people will stay here under hegemony guidance." The room was completely silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop making noise. "Your military forces will be disbanded immediately," Velthak went on, as if he was reading a shopping list. "All weapons and warships will be turned over to hegemony control. Your governments will be replaced by administrators chosen by the Supreme Council." Dr. Kim stood up slowly. "Ambassador, surely there's room for negotiation. Human civilization has much to offer as an equal partner." Velthak's large eyes focused on her with what looked like amusement. "Equal partner? Doctor, your species has barely learned to leave your single world. You fight wars with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Your fastest ships take months to reach your nearest neighbor planet." He gestured dismissively with one long-fingered hand. "The hegemony has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 of your years. We have brought peace and order to 10 million worlds. Your primitive technology and tribal thinking have no place in our civilization except as laborers and servants, Commander." Lee's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "What happened to the species that refused these terms?" "The Zenthari thought their crystal cities made them special," Velthak replied with something that might have been a smile. "They refused to join us peacefully. Their homeworld is now a mining operation. The Moklan Commonwealth believed their warrior traditions would protect them. Their fleets became scrap metal floating in space." President Bae finally spoke. "How long do we have to consider this offer?" 30 of your solar days, the ambassador said. "This is generous. Most species receive only 10 days. The Supreme Council recognizes that primitive minds need more time to understand complex concepts." General Song leaned forward in his chair. "And if we refuse?" Velthak's expression became colder. "Then you will discover why the hegemony has ruled for so long. Our 9th Fleet is already being prepared. 847 ships, including 12 planet killers. They have never failed to bring compliance." The alien stood up from his chair, which had been specially made to fit his different body shape. I will return in 30 days. For your answer, I suggest you use this time wisely. Study the fate of other worlds that chose resistance over wisdom. After Velthak left the building, the human leaders sat in stunned silence for several minutes. The weight of what they had just heard pressed down on everyone in the room. Well, Park said finally, at least we know where we stand. Dr. Kim was reading through the translated documents on her tablet. The population numbers they want. It's not random. They're taking our best and brightest. Engineers, scientists, artists, teachers, they want to break our civilization. Can we fight them? President Bay asked the question everyone was thinking. General Song pulled up holographic displays showing Earth's military capabilities. On paper, it looked hopeless. A few hundred ships against nearly 1,000. Fusion rockets against faster than light. Travel. Nuclear weapons against planet killers. Conventional analysis says no, Song admitted. But conventional analysis might not tell the whole story. Commander Lee cleared his throat. There are projects that even this council doesn't know about. Things we've been working on since first contact. Dr. Yang can explain better than I can. Dr. Yang Sujin had been quiet during the entire meeting, but now she looked up with fire in her eyes. They think they know us. They think we're primitive. Maybe it's time to show them what humans do when someone threatens our families. Admiral. Park stood up and walked to the windows overlooking Geneva. Below, people were going about their normal lives, unaware that their entire future hung in the balance. Children played in parks. Couples walked hand in hand. Old men fed pigeons by the lake. I've spent my whole career preparing for wars, Park said without turning around. Wars against other humans over resources or territory or pride. I never imagined I'd have to prepare for a war over the right to exist. He turned back to face the room. But I'll be damned if I let some alien empire decide the fate of humanity. We didn't claw our way up from caves and survive ice ages and plagues, and world wars just to become slaves. The vote was unanimous. Earth would reject the ultimatum. As the meeting ended and the leaders prepared to return to their countries, Dr. Kim approached Admiral Park. Hyun-woo, are we making the right choice? They have planet killers. Park looked out at the city one more time. Yoon-ji, my grandfather used to tell me stories about the war, how sometimes people had to choose between living on their knees or dying on their feet. I always wondered what I would choose. He picked up his cap from the table and straightened his uniform. I guess we're about to find out. The massive starship Eternal Dominion floated in the darkness between stars like a metal city. Its hull stretched for nearly 10 kilometers, covered in weapon ports and shield generators that could level mountains. Around it, hundreds of other ships moved in perfect formation through the void. Fleet Admiral Keth Morin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the enormous viewing window. His forearms moved across control panels with practiced ease, while his second set of eyes scanned tactical displays. The hegemony had chosen well when they made him their greatest war leader. Status report, Keth Moran commanded in his deep, rumbling voice. War Captain Zulneth approached from the weapons station. Her silver armor reflected the blue lights of the bridge as she walked. 847 ships ready for combat, Admiral. All weapon systems checked and loaded. The planet killers report full power to their main guns. Keth Morin nodded his massive head. The Ninth Fleet was the pride of the hegemony military. They had conquered 47 worlds without losing a single major vessel. This human assignment would be easier than most. Intelligence Officer Rixtal. What do we know about our targets? The Admiral asked. Rixtal scurried forward on his 6 legs, carrying a data pad in his small hands. His large, insect-like eyes blinked rapidly as he read from his notes. The humans call their world Earth. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level is primitive by our standards. The intelligence officer activated a holographic display showing images of Earth and its surrounding space. They have achieved basic spaceflight using fusion engines. Their weapons are mostly kinetic projectiles and nuclear devices. We estimate their entire fleet at less than 400 vessels. Keth Moran studied the images with mild interest. Human ships looked clumsy and simple compared to hegemony designs. Their hulls were thick metal instead of energy-efficient composites. Their weapons were crude mass drivers instead of plasma cannons. What about their defensive capabilities? War Captain Zulneth asked. Limited, Rixtal replied. Some orbital platforms around their homeworld and main colony on Luna. A few automated defense stations in the outer system. Nothing that could threaten a fleet of our size. The Admiral walked to his command chair, which was designed to accommodate his large frame. How long since they refused the ultimatum? 12 days, Admiral, his aide reported. Ambassador Velthak transmitted their response yesterday. The human leader, Admiral Park Hyunwoo, sent a simple message. Humanity kneels to no one. Several officers on the bridge made sounds that passed for laughter among their species. The idea of such primitive beings defying the hegemony seemed ridiculous. Typical response from a young species, Keth Moran said with amusement. They always think courage can overcome technology. The Zenthari said something similar before we turned their crystal cities to dust. Intelligence Officer Rixtal looked up from his datapad with a slight frown. Admiral, there is one unusual reading in our long-range scans. The humans appear to have increased their industrial output significantly in the past few months. Probably building more of their primitive weapons, War Captain Zulneth dismissed. What can they produce in a few months that could threaten us? Kethmaran agreed. The hegemony had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They knew every trick that young civilizations tried when faced with superior force. Humans might build more ships or bigger guns, but it would not matter against the Ninth Fleet. In the communications center of the flagship, technicians monitored human transmissions from across their solar system. Most of the messages were routine, civilian communications, but some caught their attention. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we are intercepting increased military chatter from the human fleet. They seem to be repositioning their forces. Show me, Keth Moran ordered. The main display changed to show a tactical map of the human solar system. Red dots marked known human ship positions, while blue dots showed their defensive installations. The pattern looked standard for a species preparing to defend their homeworld. They are pulling ships back from their outer colonies, the officer explained. Concentrating around Earth and Luna. Classic defensive formation. War Captain Zulneth studied the display. They have perhaps 300 ships in that formation, against our 847. This will be over quickly. Keth Moran nodded, but something bothered him about the human positions. He had fought many battles and learned to trust his instincts. The human formation looked too neat, too obvious. But he dismissed the feeling. Primitive species often made simple tactical mistakes. What about their communications security? He asked. Basic encryption that our computers broke within hours, the communications officer replied. They are discussing supply lines, defensive positions, and evacuation plans for civilians. Nothing surprising. In the intelligence section of the ship, Rixtal continued studying data about Earth and its inhabitants. The more he read, the more puzzled he became. Humans had developed faster than most species he had studied. Their technology jumped forward in sudden leaps instead of steady progress. Computer, show me human military development over the past 50 years, he requested. The display showed a timeline of human weapons and ships. For most of their history, development was slow and steady. But in recent decades, especially after they achieved spaceflight, progress had accelerated dramatically. Interesting, Rixtal muttered to himself. They went from chemical rockets to fusion drives in less than 20 years. Most species take centuries for that advancement. He pulled up more data about human conflicts. They seem to fight wars constantly, but instead of weakening them, each conflict made them stronger. Their technology improved with each battle. Their tactics became more creative. Computer, compare human development rate to other conquered species. The results made his large eyes widen. Humans learned and adapted faster than any species in the hegemony database. When they encountered new technology, they did not just copy it, they improved it. Rixtal hurried to Admiral Kethmaran's quarters. The Admiral was reviewing battle plans for the assault on Earth, studying the best approach routes through the human solar system. Admiral, I believe we may have underestimated the humans, Rixtal said nervously. Kethmaran looked up from his plans with mild annoyance. Officer, we have 800 ships against their 300. Our weapons are centuries ahead of theirs. What could we possibly have underestimated? Their learning capabilities, sir. Humans adapt faster than any species we have encountered. They have been in contact with our technology for months now. What if they have learned from it? The Admiral considered this for a moment, then dismissed it with a wave of his hand. Rixtal, you worry too much. No species can close a 1,000-year technology gap in a few months. It is impossible. But Admiral, enough, Kethmaran cut him off. We have our orders. The Supreme Council expects this world to be conquered within 1 week of our arrival. I do not intend to disappoint them because of theoretical concerns. As Rixtal left the Admiral's quarters, he could not shake his uneasiness. Something about the humans felt different. Their defiance was not the desperate bravado of a doomed species. It felt like confidence. Back on the bridge, War Captain Zulneth was coordinating with the other ship captains. The planet-killer dreadnoughts were positioning themselves for maximum effect. Each ship carried weapons that could crack continents and boil oceans. Admiral, the fleet reports ready for hyperspace jump, she announced. Kethmaran took his position in the command chair. Around him, hundreds of officers prepared for what they expected to be their easiest conquest ever. Set course for the human homeworld, he ordered. All ships, prepare for hyperspace transition. Let us show these primitives the price of defying the hegemony. The stars outside the viewing window stretched into lines of light as the Ninth Fleet entered hyperspace, racing toward Earth at speeds that bent reality itself. In 12 hours, they would arrive at humanity's doorstep with enough firepower to destroy planets. None of them suspected that they were flying into a trap that had been 3 months in the making. Deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, General Song Da-bin walked through corridors that officially did not exist. The facility was buried 3 kilometers underground, hidden from all sensors and satellites. Even most of Earth's leaders had never heard of this place. How long until the alien fleet arrives? Song asked her aide as they passed through security checkpoints that scanned everything from DNA to quantum signatures. 11 hours and 32 minutes, General, Lieutenant Han Bo-Ram replied, checking her tablet. Our deep space sensors are tracking them through hyperspace. They're coming in fast and confident. Song nodded grimly. The aliens had no idea what they were flying into. For 3 months, ever since first contact, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Not the preparation the aliens expected, but something far more dangerous. They entered the main command center, a massive chamber filled with holographic displays and hundreds of technicians. At the center stood Dr. Yang Su-jin, the woman who had spent her entire career preparing for a war that nobody believed would ever happen. Status report, Doctor, Song requested. Dr. Yang turned from a complex control panel, her eyes bright with excitement and fear. Project Prometheus is ready for activation. All systems are green across the board. The aliens are going to get quite a surprise. She gestured to the largest holographic display, which showed the entire solar system. What the aliens saw as a simple defensive formation was actually something completely different. For 50 years, we've been building this, Yang explained. Every space mission, every satellite launch, every deep space probe. They all had a secondary purpose that we kept secret from everyone, including most of our own governments. The displays zoomed in on various points throughout the solar system. Thousands of objects that looked like space debris or asteroids suddenly lit up in green. Hidden defense platforms, Yang continued. Each one contains technology that we reverse-engineered and improved from alien samples we've collected over the decades. The aliens think they're the first to visit Earth. They're wrong. General Song studied the display with amazement. How many platforms? 43,000, Yang replied. From Mercury orbit to the Kuiper Belt. Each one is invisible to alien sensors and armed with weapons they won't recognize until it's too late. Lieutenant Han Bo-Ram looked up from her communication station. General, we're receiving reports from all defense sectors. Captain Lim Seo-wan confirms the orbital grid is ready. Captain Cho Min-ho reports Ghost Wing is prepared for launch. Song walked to another display showing Earth's fleet positions. The ships that had looked primitive and clumsy to alien eyes were shedding their disguises. Hull plating fell away to reveal sleek armor underneath. Fake engine sections dropped off to show advanced propulsion systems. The masquerade is over, Song said with satisfaction. Show them what we really are. Across the solar system, the transformation began. On Luna, Captain Lim Seo-wan watched as massive gun batteries rose from hidden positions beneath the surface. Each weapon was larger than most buildings and powered by technology that bent the laws of physics. All lunar defense systems online, Lim reported to Earth Command. Power levels at maximum. We're ready to give them hell. In the asteroid belt, mining ships that had been working for decades suddenly revealed their true nature. What looked like industrial equipment were actually mobile weapons platforms, each one crewed by soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this battle. Near Jupiter, Captain Cho Min-ho prepared his squadron for launch. Ghostwing was humanity's most secret project, fighters that used experimental technology to move in ways that should have been impossible. His pilots were the best in human history, selected and trained for a war they prayed would never come. Ghostwing ready for deployment, Cho reported. All pilots are green and eager. We've been waiting for this our whole lives. Back in the Colorado facility, Dr. Yang activated another system. Computer, initiate Deception Protocol 7. Across where? Human space, fake communications began broadcasting on frequencies the aliens had been monitoring. The messages spoke of fear and desperation, of evacuation plans and last-ditch defenses. Every word was carefully crafted to make the aliens believe they were winning before the battle even started. Let them think we're scared, Yang said with a cold smile. Fear makes people stupid, and the aliens have been stupid about us from the beginning. Admiral Park Hyun-woo materialized as a hologram in the command center, transmitting from Luna Command. His uniform was different now, sleeker, with technology woven into the fabric that would have amazed alien engineers. All defense sectors report ready, Park announced. The moment we've been preparing for since first contact is finally here. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species in the galaxy that's tired of living under alien rule. Dr. Yang pulled up another display showing intelligence gathered over months of careful observation. We know their fleet composition, their tactics, their weaknesses. The aliens are overconfident. They think this will be easy. That's going to be their biggest mistake. She pointed to specific ships in the alien formation. Their planet killers are powerful but slow. Their shields are strong against energy weapons but vulnerable to exotic matter. Their commanders follow. Predictable patterns because they've never faced real resistance. General Song nodded. What about their numbers? 800 ships is still a lot, even for us. Numbers only matter if you can bring them to bear, Yang replied. We're going to hit them so fast and so hard that half their fleet will be gone. Before they realize what's happening, the rest will be too confused to fight effectively. Commander Lee Jae-min's voice came through the communication system from the Indomitable. All fleet captains report ready. The ships are showing their true colors now. Even I'm amazed at what we've managed to hide. The Indomitable itself was perhaps the greatest deception of all. What had appeared to be a simple cruiser was actually a technological marvel that incorporated every advance humanity had made in 50 years of secret research. Its hull was embedded with armor that could self-repair. Its weapons could punch through any known shield. Its engines could accelerate at rates that would kill most alien pilots. Captain Yoon Na-ri reports from Deep Current, Han Bo-ram announced. The submarine fleet is in position and ready for underwater space operations. Song raised an eyebrow. Underwater space operations? Yang grinned. One of our more creative innovations. We learned to make ships that can swim through space the same way submarines swim through oceans. The aliens have never seen anything like it. As the countdown to alien arrival continued, more systems came online throughout the solar system. Weapons that used principles the aliens thought were impossible. Defenses that could adapt and learn during battle. Tactics that combined human creativity with alien technology. Dr. No Jung-wook reports from the Special Projects Division, Han Bo-ram said. Project Midnight is ready for activation if needed. Yang's expression became serious. Let's hope we don't need Midnight. That's our final option if everything else fails. Park's hologram looked around the command center. People, in 1 hour, the alien fleet will drop out of hyperspace expecting to find a primitive world ready for conquest. Instead, they're going to find out why humanity survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. They're going to learn that we don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win. The general alarm began sounding throughout the facility. All across the solar system, similar alarms were ringing as humanity prepared to reveal its greatest secret. That sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that pretends to be prey. All stations, this is General Song, she announced to the entire defense network. Operation Prometheus is now active. Show them what happens when someone threatens our home. The transformation was complete. Humanity was ready for war. The Ninth Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system with the precision of a finely tuned machine. 847 ships materialized from twisted space, their hulls gleaming with the deadly beauty of advanced technology. Fleet Admiral Keth Moran stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical displays update with satisfaction. Everything looked exactly as Intelligence Officer Rixtal had predicted. Human ships clustered around their homeworld in a defensive formation that looked desperate and poorly planned. "Begin long-range scans," Keth Moran ordered. "I want a complete tactical picture before we begin the assault." War Captain Zulneth moved between control stations, coordinating the fleet's sensors. The first readings came back within minutes, and they were exactly what the aliens expected to see. "Admiral, we detect approximately 300 human vessels," she reported. "Their technology appears primitive as expected. Basic fusion engines, kinetic weapons, simple armor plating." Keth Moran nodded with approval. "Any sign of advanced defensive systems?" "Some orbital platforms around their moon," Zulneth replied. "Nothing that our shields cannot handle easily. The humans appear to be concentrating their forces for a final stand around Earth." Intelligence Officer Rixtal scurried up to the Admiral's command chair, his large eyes blinking nervously. Something about the readings bothered him, but he could not identify what it was. "Admiral, permission to conduct deeper scans?" Rixtal requested. "Denied," Keth Moran replied firmly. "We move now while they are still organizing their defenses. All ships, advance to attack formation." The massive alien fleet began moving toward Earth like a wave of death. Planet-killer dreadnoughts took positions at the rear, while smaller warships spread out in attack formations that had conquered dozens of worlds. On Luna, Captain Lim Seo-wan watched the alien advance through hidden sensors that the enemy could not detect. The aliens were moving exactly as human strategists had predicted they would. Overconfident and careless. "All lunar stations maintain stealth mode," Lim ordered quietly. "Let them get closer. Wait for the signal." Across the solar system, 43,000 hidden defense platforms remained invisible and silent. Each one was positioned with mathematical precision, creating a trap that would spring closed around the alien fleet. Admiral Park Hyun-woo observed everything from Luna Command, his fingers moving across controls that managed defensive systems the aliens had no idea existed. Beside him, Commander Lee Jamin prepared the human fleet for what would be the most important battle in their species' history. "All ships report ready," Lee announced. "The moment the aliens get within range, we can drop our disguises and show them what we really are." Park studied the tactical display with the cold focus of a predator watching prey walk into a trap. "Wait until they commit fully. We get one chance at this." The alien fleet continued its advance, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had done this dance dozens of times before with dozens of worlds. Young species always tried to make heroic last stands. It never worked. "Human fleet is moving to intercept," War Captain Zulneth reported from the tactical station. "They appear to be attempting some kind of delaying action." Keth Moran watched human ships move toward his fleet with what looked like desperate courage. Their formation was loose and uncoordinated. Their approach was predictable. Everything suggested that they were about to be crushed with minimal effort. "All weapons, prepare to fire," the Admiral commanded. "Let us end this quickly." The first exchange of fire came when the fleets were still thousands of kilometers apart. Alien energy weapons lanced out in brilliant streams of destruction, targeting the leading human ships. The aliens expected to see those ships explode or retreat in panic. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships absorbed the energy blasts without any visible damage. Shields that should not have existed deflected weapons that could melt asteroids. Then the human ships fired back with weapons that made no sense. "What was that?" Zulneth shouted as alien ships began exploding throughout the fleet. The human weapons did not look like energy beams or projectiles. They appeared as ripples in space itself, reality bending around alien ships and tearing them apart from the inside out. "Impossible," Keth Moran whispered, as he watched 3 of his destroyers simply vanish from existence. "Those weapons violate known physics." On the Indomitable, Commander Lee smiled grimly as his ship's exotic matter cannons fired again. The weapons used principles that alien science considered theoretical impossibilities, turning their own physics knowledge against them. "Target the heavy cruisers," Lee ordered his weapons officer. "Show them what happens when you underestimate human engineering." Throughout the alien fleet, commanders screamed orders that made no sense. Their sensors could not track weapons that bent space-time. Their shields were designed to stop energy and matter, not attacks that reached through dimensions they had never imagined. Captain Cho Min-ho launched Ghost Wing from hidden bases throughout the solar system. His fighters moved through space in ways that should have killed their pilots, pulling turns that violated every law of physics the aliens knew. "Ghost Wing, engage at will," Cho commanded as his squadron attacked the alien formation. "Show them what human pilots can do." The alien fleet tried to respond to the fighter attack, but their targeting systems could not lock onto ships that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Human fighters phased in and out of normal space, striking from angles that geometry said were impossible. "Admiral, we are taking heavy casualties," Zulneth reported, her voice filled with panic. "Our weapons cannot track their ships. Our shields cannot stop their weapons." Keth Moran stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Half his fleet was already gone, destroyed by enemies they could barely detect. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. "All ships, fall back to defensive formation," he ordered desperately. "Activate the planet killers. If we cannot defeat their fleet, we will destroy their world." The massive dreadnoughts began charging their main weapons, generators building power to crack continents. But before they could fire, Captain Lim's lunar defense grid revealed itself. Weapons larger than city blocks rose from hidden positions on Luna's surface. Each gun was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed to punch through any armor ever built. They fired in perfect synchronization, their exotic matter shells crossing space faster than light itself. The first planet killer exploded so completely that it took nearby ships with it. The second simply ceased to exist, its matter converted to energy by weapons that rewrote the fundamental forces of nature. Within minutes, all 12 dreadnoughts were gone. "Fleet Admiral," Intelligence Officer Rixtall said in a shaking voice, "we need to retreat. Now. These are not the primitives we expected." But retreat was no longer possible. Throughout the solar system, the hidden defense platforms activated simultaneously. 43,000 weapons fired at once, creating a network of destruction that trapped the alien fleet in a cage of death. Captain Yun Na-ri emerged from hiding with the submarine fleet, ships that swam through space like fish through water. They attacked from directions that three-dimensional thinking could not predict, appearing inside the alien formation and devastating ships from within. "All alien vessels, this is Admiral Park Hyun-woo," came a transmission across all frequencies. "You came here expecting to conquer primitives. Instead, you found the species that refuses to be conquered. Surrender now, and we might let some of you live." Keth Moran looked around his bridge at officers who had never known defeat. For the first time in his military career, he was losing a battle. Worse, he was losing to enemies who should not have been capable of resistance. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving retreat orders from our surviving ships. They want to withdraw to hyperspace." The Admiral considered his options. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by weapons and tactics he did not understand. His planet killers were gone. His numerical advantage meant nothing against enemies who could bend reality itself. "All ships, emergency retreat," Keth Moran ordered with bitter defeat in his voice. "Jump to hyperspace immediately." But as the surviving alien ships tried to flee, they discovered that their hyperspace drives were not responding. Something was interfering with their ability to escape, trapping them in normal space with enemies who showed no mercy. One by one, the remaining ships of the Ninth Fleet began to disappear, not destroyed by conventional weapons, but simply gone, as if they had never existed at all. 3 days after the battle, High Admiral Kolvaran stood in the Supreme Council chambers on the hegemony capital world, staring at a tactical display that showed nothing but empty space where the Ninth Fleet should have been. "Explain to me again how our most powerful fleet simply vanished," demanded Council Leader Morthak, his voice echoing through the crystal dome above them. Kolvaran had served the hegemony for 200 years. He had conquered worlds and crushed rebellions. He had never lost a fleet, never failed a mission. Now he faced the impossible task of explaining something that defied all logic. The last transmission from Fleet Admiral Keth Moran came 18 hours after they engaged the human forces, Kolvarin reported. He reported heavy casualties and requested permission to retreat. Then all communications stopped. Heavy casualties from primitives? Another council member asked with disbelief. Apparently the humans were not as primitive as we believed, Kolvarin replied grimly. Our intelligence was either completely wrong or deliberately deceived. Intelligence Director Malthus activated her own displays, showing the limited data they had managed to gather. We sent probe ships to investigate the human system. They detected no wreckage, no debris fields, nothing to indicate a battle took place. That is impossible, Morthak stated. 800 ships cannot simply disappear without a trace. The probe ships also vanished when they attempted to enter the human solar system, Malthus continued. Long-range sensors show the system appears normal, but any vessel that crosses the boundary never returns. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years through superior technology and overwhelming force. Now a single world had somehow eliminated their greatest fleet without leaving any evidence. On Earth, President Bae Sung-hee stood before the United Nations Assembly, addressing representatives from every nation on the planet. The battle had lasted only 6 hours, but it had changed everything for humanity. My fellow humans, President Bae began, 3 days ago, we faced extinction. Today we stand as the first species in galactic history to defeat a hegemony fleet in open combat. The assembly erupted in cheers and applause, but Bae raised her hand for quiet. However, our victory comes with great responsibility. Other species across the galaxy are watching us, some with hope, others with fear. We must decide what kind of galactic neighbors we want to be. In the hidden facility beneath Colorado, Dr. No Jung-wook monitored the quantum containment fields that held the key to their greatest secret. Project Midnight had been activated during the battle, and its results exceeded every calculation. Status. Report on the displaced fleet, Admiral Park requested as he entered the laboratory. Dr. No turned from his control panels with exhaustion written across his face. All 847 ships are secure in the pocket dimension. The quantum entanglement networks are stable. They cannot escape or send signals to their homeworlds. Park studied the readings with amazement. And they are alive in there? Completely unharmed, No confirmed. Time moves differently in the pocket dimension. To them, only minutes have passed since the displacement. They will have centuries to think about their choices while we decide what to do with them. The pocket dimension technology had been humanity's greatest breakthrough after studying captured alien devices. By manipulating quantum entanglement on a massive scale, they could relocate matter across dimensional space without destroying it. Any word from the hegemony? Park asked. 3 more probe fleets have attempted to investigate our system, Dr. Yang Soo-jin reported as she joined them. All have been displaced like the first. Word is spreading through their territory that Earth has become a no-go zone. Across the galaxy, news of the Ninth Fleet's disappearance traveled through hegemony space like wildfire. On conquered worlds, oppressed populations whispered about the humans who had somehow made an entire fleet vanish. Hope began growing in places where it had been dead for generations. On the industrial world of Keftar, former slaves looked up at the sky and wondered if freedom was possible. On the mining colonies of the Vorthon system, workers began talking about resistance. The hegemony's image of invincibility was cracking. Riots on 12 worlds, Intelligence Director Malthus reported to the Council. Subject species are questioning our authority. Some are demanding independence. Council Leader Morthak slammed his fist on the crystal table. This cannot be allowed to continue. We must make an example of Earth. With what fleet? High Admiral. Kolvarin asked bluntly. We have sent 4 separate groups to investigate. None have returned. Whatever the humans did to the Ninth Fleet, they can apparently do to any force we send. On Luna, Commander Lee Jae-min met with the other human fleet. Commanders to discuss their next moves. The Indomitable floated outside the window, its hull still showing the exotic modifications that had surprised the aliens. Supply ships from 17 different worlds have requested permission to approach Earth, Captain Lim Seo-wan reported. Species that were conquered by the hegemony are reaching out to us. They want to know if the stories are true, Captain Cho Min-ho added. If we really defeated the Ninth Fleet without losing a single ship? Lee nodded thoughtfully. The question is, what do we do now? We proved we can defend ourselves, but that was never the real goal. Admiral Park joined the meeting via hologram from Earth Command. Dr. Yang's analysis suggests that we have maybe 6 months before the hegemony mobilizes their remaining fleets for a massive assault. They cannot allow our victory to stand. Then we need to act first, Captain Yunari suggested. The pocket dimension technology works. We could displace their home fleet the same way we displaced the Ninth Fleet. Park considered this option but shook his head. That would make us conquerors, not liberators. We need a different approach. President Bay's solution came during a meeting with representatives from the approaching alien ships. Many were from species that had been enslaved by the hegemony for centuries. They had come to Earth hoping to find allies in their struggle for freedom. We propose the Galactic Liberation Alliance, Bay announced to the assembled alien representatives. Earth will provide protection and technology to any species seeking independence from hegemony rule. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within weeks, 50 different worlds had joined the alliance. The hegemony found themselves facing not one rebellious planet, but a growing coalition of their former subjects. This is spreading beyond our control, Malthus warned the Council. More worlds join the human alliance every day. Our authority is collapsing. Then we use everything, Morthak declared. Every ship, every weapon. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. But when the hegemony's remaining fleets gathered for their final assault on Earth, they found something unexpected waiting for them. The humans had not been idle. Using their quantum displacement technology, they had created a network of defense platforms throughout Allied space. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the new flagship Liberation, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history approached Earth. Behind him, representatives from dozens of freed worlds waited to see if their new alliance could survive its greatest test. All Allied fleets, this is Admiral Park, he announced across the galaxy. Today, we do not fight for conquest or revenge. We fight for the right of every species to determine its own destiny. The battle that followed lasted 3 days and changed the galaxy forever. When it ended, the hegemony's age of dominance was over. Their remaining fleets had been displaced to pocket dimensions where they would have time to reconsider their choices. Standing on the observation deck of Luna Command, Admiral Park watched ships from 100 different worlds working together to build a new future. The age of the hegemony had ended. The age of freedom had begun. Sir, Lieutenant Han Boram reported, we are receiving a transmission from the pocket dimension containing the original Ninth Fleet. What do they say? Park asked. Fleet Admiral Keth Morin is requesting permission to negotiate terms of surrender. He says the hegemony is ready to discuss peace. Park smiled as he watched the stars. Tell him we will be happy to discuss terms, right after they agree to free every enslaved world in their territory. The galaxy would never be the same.